students, welcome back. So in the previous video I explained about the code migration. Now let's see what are the different migration models that are there. So if you want to generate a code migration in the distributed system, you can use any one of the models. Now let's see. Before seeing the different migration models, you know that the process consisting of 3 segments. So a complete process, whatever the process that has to be executed, a program that has to be executed by the processor is a process. So this process is divided into 3 code segments. One is the 3 segments. One is the code segment, resource segment, and execution segment. Okay. So the code segment, whatever the code that has to be there, that has to be migrated. If it has to be migrated, you can migrate the complete code, or you can migrate the process also. Now let's see. A migration is a mobility. You can call it as a migration or a mobility that can be a weak or a strong. So the migration that taking place, if it is a code or if it is a process and if it is anything, that can be a weak or a strong. So weak migration means only code segment can be transferred. So in the process only the code segment is transferred, then you call it as a weak migration. You call it as a weak migration. Strong migration means code and execution segments can both be transferred. So here the code and execution both are transferred, then you call it as a strong migration. So when you call a strong migration, when you're going to transfer the code as well as the execution part, code and what execution that you want to be, what type of operation that you have to be performed, if both are transferred, then it is a strong migration. Weak migration means only the code has to be transferred. It doesn't know what type of execution it has to be do. Later the execution segment can be transferred. So it means that is a weak migration. Okay. So the migration may be a strong migration or a weak migration. And also the migration can be sender initiated and the receiver initiated. So these are all the different models. Strong migration, weak migration, sender initiated, receiver initiated. So what is a sender initiated? Sender initiated means sender, the person who wants to send the data, the receiver who receiving the data. Okay, so here the sender initiated means uploading code to a server. So it is going to upload a code from client to the server. It is uploading a code to a server. So example is client sending a query to database server. So it is just asking a query. I want to get some data, means I want to upload a data, I want to retrieve a data, something information. The sender is going to initiate the receiver. So here the sender is the client and this is the receiver. Server is the receiver. Now let's see another migration, that is a receiver initiated. Now this time the receiver is initiated. Here downloading code from a server. So client is asking to upload a code and server is giving a permission to download a code. Download code. So now the code is migrating from server to the client. So this is the receiver initiated. Downloading code from a server by a client. So example is client downloading Java applets from the server. From the server the Java applets are downloading to the client system. So these are all the different migration models. So this, let's see here, the migration mechanism consisting of weak mobility and strong mobility. So what I said, weak mobility means only code segment is transferred. Weak mobility or weak migration means only the code segment is transferred in this case. Whereas strong mobility means code segment as well as the execution segment both are transferred. That is a strong mobility or strong migration. Okay. So the weak mobility is sender initiated as well as the receiver initiated. In the same way, the strong mobility can be sender initiated mobility or the receiver initiated mobility. Okay. So if you want to transfer the code only, then it can be initiated by the sender or the receiver. In the same way, if you want to transfer the code segment along with the execution segment, it may be sender initiated or receiver initiated. If suppose it is a sender initiated, execute a target process, execute in separate process. And if it is a receiver initiated means execute a target process, executed in a separate process. So both sender and the receiver here, because it is only the code segment is transferring. Whenever the code segment is transferring from a sender to the receiver or receiver to sender, it performs same operations. Executed target process, executed in separate process. Whereas in the strong mobility, the sender initiative, it migrates the process and clone the process. Migrate process and clone process. In the same way, the receiver initiated, it migrate process and the clone process. So these are all the different models of the migration models. The migration models are of two types, weak migrated or strong migration. Weak migration may be sender initiated or receiver initiated. In the same way, strong mobility means sender initiated or receiver initiated. Thank you.